Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flock Talk. I'm Erin Morgan,
And I'm Tom Lewis.
and we work for the farmer members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers Organization.
This week, the topic is marketing, and we will be interviewing Romy Schill from Revolution Wool Co.
Revolution Wool Company creates naturally soft and luxurious wool bedding and wool goods from the sheep raised on their farm.
So, welcome, Romy. Thank you for joining us. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your farm operations?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Yes, my name's Romy Schill. My husband and I, Ryan, run a large commercial breeding flock in southern Ontario near Elmira. We have commercial ewes focused on a Dorset and prolific sort of mix of sheep. We are raising them primarily for meat. We also sell breeding stock, ewe lambs, ram lambs to other producers. We have 3 children. They are also slowly starting to get involved in the business. And I also have a wool retail business.
Yeah, so when did your family decide to add the Revolution Wool Company to the business? How did that company start?
The Revolution Wool Company, it just kind of started about 10 years ago, I think. And it was one of those, our sheep make wool, we have to shear them. Wool makes yarn, yarn makes sweaters. Why are we not doing that with our Canadian wool? There's so much on the market with merino wool, and they've done a great job in promoting that brand. But it sort of left us high and dry, and Canadian wool has not been marketed. It's just sort of been exported, made into product. We might get it back, but we have no idea where it comes from, right? So I started just getting a few skeins of yarn made at a local mill and kind of thought, oh, like it makes really nice yarn. It's really great. We couldn't do some more with this. And then I got involved with the Upper Canada Fiber Shed. And that kind of opened my eyes to a whole new world of knitters, crocheters, artisans that were interested in knowing where their fibers came from and actually using natural and real fibers, not using acrylics and other synthetic materials. And then it sort of just kept snowballing from there. I rebranded to like the official Revolution Wool Company about 3-4 years ago now, and made a bigger effort to get out to some larger market. I do artisan markets now. And with that was also this thought that, yes, there are a lot of people who might need yarn for knitting, but everyone needs pillows. And I had gotten into making some pillows and duvets and things like that. So I've been focusing a lot more sort of on larger volume home textile type goods because, yeah, we can make wool pillows, wool duvets, wool blankets. We can get into wool rugs, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just kind of taken off. And now I'm the crazy wool lady and everyone asks me wool questions.
Well, here's another wool question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about where you source your wool and for the lovely products you make? And is it from your farm or a combination of farms, or maybe just some more background on that?
Yes, so we've been able to the last 2 years to use all the wool that we produce on our farm, and I've started buying from other producers. So when I'm buying from other producers, so far it's been flocks with similar sheep in ours to keep that consistency in the actual fiber and breeds that I'm using for that. And yeah, moving forward, hopefully I can keep buying more from other producers because there's lots out there. So we want to use as much as we can.
So, what do producers need to know about wool in order to produce a high quality product?
So number one, they are already producing a high quality product. I think a lot of producers think because there's no value, or we as producers, especially in Canada, have not been paid much for our wool for what, 20, 30 years, that there's inherently not a lot of value or quality in it, but it's the best quality. It's really great quality for like the bedding and carpets and blankets. Usually Ontario wool, it's coming from meat flocks. So, like Dorset, Suffolk, crossbreds, and they create a really lofty type wool that's really great for bedding, really good for like hard wearing items like outerwear, carpets, things like that. The thing producers can do to improve the actual overall quality of the clip is cleanliness. So feeding management, feeding TMR instead of like a big bale of hay. Because when sheep are eating a big bale of hay in a feeder, they'll pull that hay out. They'll get it all over their backs. It'll get down into the fleece and make it dirty that way. And that's really hard to get out. Pasture management is also involved in that. Keeping the sheep out of fur patches, thistles, things that can get stuck into the wool. Again, the same thing. As soon as like vegetable matters in that wool, it's really hard to get out with processing. And then just skirting when you're shearing. So grabbing those fleeces from the shearer, which the shearer should be set up in a clean area. There shouldn't be like straw on the floor, because again, that would get mixed in. So grabbing that fleece from the shearer, making sure the belly wool is off, and then going around that fleece and taking off any dags, so any of the soiled manure bits from the back end, taking off things like, sometimes depending on the system, sheep will get like a matted bit across their neck because they're having to stick their head through a type of feeder. So pulling off any matted bits like that. They can also check the strength of the fiber. So if you take a lock of wool and sort of stretch it between your fingers, it'll kind of make a ping sound. And you're just sort of checking the actual strength of that fiber. So sometimes sheep, they'll get what's called wool break, where they're going through some sort of health stress. So whether it be lambing, an incidence like they get a fever because of mastitis or some other type of illness, that'll weaken the wool. So if you're testing it and you stretch it between your fingers, it won't have like a crisp ping sound, and sometimes it'll even like tear apart because there's a weak spot in that wool. So if there is a fleece that has weak fibers, or that's maybe like tatty or something from the sheep being sick, that should not be put in the batch of the good wool.
So let's jump into marketing. Tell us a little bit about how you market your products.
So I guess number one right now is online. So I have a website set up for online sales, and online is kind of a gigantic beast that can be really hard to navigate, because it's not just a website. You need to look into, linking into social media and all the background work for that. And then you get into algorithms and Google and analytics and all of that fun stuff. So I built most of my website myself, but I did work with someone for the SEO, so search engine optimization. So that sort of background text that like a Google would use when people would type in, say, wool yarn. You want to make sure that their search on something like a Google search engine would draw them to your site. So if and it doesn't always make sense. So working with a professional in that made it a lot easier, because I kind of had no idea what was going on. I think actually an example is for our sheep and lamb skins. We, on the SEO, I think we called it sheep hair, not sheep wool. And there was some wording in there because the consumer doesn't necessarily know what to search for specific products. So making sure that, that wording on your website is right, so people actually find you and that kind of thing. So I still don't have that all figured out. There's so much we could do.
It sounds like a lot. What are some of the challenges that you face in your business? I think you've already mentioned that search engine optimization and just learning all the things you need to know are in there. But what are some other challenges you face in this business, and how have you addressed them?
So one of the biggest challenges is definitely the physical milling and processing of the wool. We've got a lot of small mini mills in Ontario, which are really great for artisanal type products, processing a sheep's fleece sort of one at a time. It's really great for those producers who are doing fleece and breed specific yarn. But to scale anything has been a little more difficult. I have been able to find like the mill that does our batting and our felt. I was able to get a large batch of blankets done out in PEI, and our yarn as well gets done on the East Coast. But it's a huge jump from getting a few fleeces done to then like investing that money and kind of going all out. There's no in between, which I think maybe has been good because it's forced me to take that big jump versus maybe taking a middle step, which is maybe not as efficient. So I've been able to scale some things that way. But yeah, there's definitely huge, huge challenges and opportunities as well. Like if someone wants to invest money in some sort of processing in Canada, go ahead, because we could definitely use it. And I guess labor would be the other one because right now it's just me doing it. Brian does the financial bookkeeping for me, but my mom has to come. She comes and helps me at the big markets, things like that. So it's kind of all hands on deck. And then that juggle of how many markets or what markets can I go to if I'm doing in-person markets? When are we lambing at home? When do I need to be home for the children and things like that? So just sort of that classic entrepreneurial juggle struggle thing.
So tell us a little bit about soil to soil fiber systems.
So soil to soil fiber systems is just sort of an overarching idea or phrase that's really good at describing wool and I guess other natural fibers too, in that the sheep eat the grass, which is grown by the soil. The sheep then in turn create their meat, their milk, their wool. And once we're done, using the wool, whether it be in yarn or clothing, in bedding, carpets, whatever it might be, when we're done, it biodegrades and goes back into the soil. So this whole circular economy thing and using natural fibers. And that also links back into carbon sequestration, because if we can use materials like wool that are going to sequester carbon and be part of that cycle, that's really important.
So, Romy, you've already mentioned that Ontario producers have great quality wool. So, what is the future of the Canadian wool industry in your mind, or what's possible? Where do you see it going and why?
Oh, the big dreams, eh? I think it'd be really great if we could develop the Canadian wool brand in a way like they have Icelandic wool, right? When you go to Iceland, it's this whole thing. Everyone buys an Icelandic wool sweater. There's people that go to Iceland or like Shetland in the UK. I think it's the UK. Don't quote me on that, right? Don't yell at me, people. But like there's Shetland Wool Week. People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to go on like wool and yarn tours for Shetland Wool Week. So I think it'd be really cool if in Canada we could work up to and build that same sort of branding, because I think we've got a really great product. And then, you like add in the Canadian story and all of that too. It'd be great if we could get like wool pillows into somewhere like Sleep Country or something like that, right? Because we have enough wool to do it. It's just the physical like marketing of it and like taking that on. So one day.
So if producers want to start marketing their wool, where should they start or what advice do you have for them?
I think that producers need to decide whether it's something they want to invest in seriously. There's a lot of opportunity to sort of play with it, get a few fleeces milled into yarn, sell some yarn at farmers markets and things like that. But I don't think that is going to make the biggest impact. It'd be really great if we could get some more producers to seriously jump in and invest and sort of help us push the wool market. But again, you need to decide, same thing like picking what breed of sheep you want to have on your farm. Do you want to go to artisan markets? Do you want to run a full-fledged online website? do you have the time and the resources to spend away from home versus working with your sheep? Um, so yeah, it's one of those decisions and kind of business planning things. I think deciding what you want to do with your time and what your goals are. To start though, it'd be great if, producers even just skirted their fleeces. But again, we're in a bit of a spot right now where there's no one to buy the wool. And I hope that changes soon. But unfortunately, unless you really invest in it and sort of launch your own business, there unfortunately really isn't a way to capture that value right now, I think, which is really unfortunate. But hopefully one day we can be like, yep, I'll buy this many pounds from you, make sure it's skirted, ABC, and we're good to go. Um, but yeah, just sort of I guess producers need to just, give companies like us a little bit more time, and hopefully one day we can buy some more.
Well, thanks, Romy. If people wanted to learn more about Revolution Wool Company and find you online, where do they find you on the web and through social media?
Yeah, so the website is revolutionwoolco.com, and you can also find me on social media at revolutionwoolco. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you've got questions or if you want to team up on a project or whatever. I'm up for all the crazy wool ideas.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Romy, for taking the time out of your day to share your business with us. For more information about Revolution Wool, visit their website at revolutionwoolco.com.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this marketing episode. Join us next Wednesday for our education-themed interview with our recent carcass competition winner, Kim Schneider, to talk about selecting lambs for meat quality and the value of incorporating loin scanning into your operation.
And if you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe through your podcast app to receive alerts for our future episodes, and please feel free to share the podcast with your friends and family.
For more Ontario Sheep Farmers content, follow us on social media at Ontario Sheep Farmers on Instagram and Facebook, and at Ontario Sheep on X, formerly Twitter, and visit our website at ontariosheep.org.